What is happening, you beautiful bastards? Welcome back to another week. This week, we have a return guest. His name is Eric. You may know him as E.S.Fein.
That's right. And we had him on way back in episode 28.
Yes.
He's all about lucid dreaming. And lo and behold, this one is also about lucid dreaming. But he's here to talk about his new book. Grizz, what's it called?
Dream of Waking Life.
Yes, which is a fantasy story, but based on a lot of his personal experiences. So we talk a lot about the book, but also we go a little bit deeper into lucid dreaming, a little bit deeper into Grizz's handicap, where his brain doesn't work when his eyes are closed, and into all kinds of things. So let's get to it.
What is happening, you beautiful bastards? So since we had you on last time, people loved your show. We've been meaning to put it on YouTube.
Great.
We haven't yet, just because life has been insane for both of us. I've had a lot of questions about all of it. I don't know about Jerry.
Well, I was already up on it a little more than you, but since we spoke last.
Questions.
Oh yeah. No, it's probably the same people that you spoke to. So.
Well, that is awesome. And I will say, if you guys are interested in talking about the book as well, I did finish my new book, A Dream of Waking Life.
Nice.
And I literally just got a review last night. It's been overwhelming how well it's been doing. But
awesome.
One of the guys said, hey, I constantly read these books about dreams, books that cover this, well, whether it's Vanilla Sky, Inception, blah, blah, blah. He said, this is the single best book I've ever seen incorporating the idea of lucid dreaming in a completely realistic way. I was like, oh, dude, thank you. He's like, it's very clear this guy has a great deal of experience with this. So my point in saying that is, even though it's fiction, and there's a lot of reality to it too from my own experience, but even though it is largely fantastical and creative writing, you're going to learn so much about lucid dreaming just from reading that book.
Now, is it just paper copy, or are you doing a audio version as well?
The audiobook is being made now, and the paper and ebook are available on Amazon.
Because I'm an idiot and I can't read.
Are you doing your own narration?
No, I did a voice actress for my first book, Points of Origin, and she's doing the next one again.
Oh, awesome.
Nice. Yeah, she did awesome. She did really well.
I tried stuff. I still fall asleep like a rock. I never made it past that, dude.
I mean, at least you tried, but yeah, that's definitely something we can talk about. Different techniques I've seen used to kind of override that. But I mean, to be fair, you were saying before, you're like, dude, it's not going to happen. I am the ultimate deep sleeper.
Grizz has no frontal lobe.
Oh God. No, I find sleep fascinating, man. And there's so much more to it than even as a species, we've only scratched the surface. But when you get into some of the actual sleep studies, and I wanted to get some people on, but getting a hold of them is impossible because they're always doing research and they never want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Dude, it's fucking mind blowing how it affects everything.
Yeah.
We have a buddy, he tried doing it, and what did he say? He would get to the point.
Oh, yeah. So he would get to the point where I wish I had the message specifically.
I have it right here.
Roughly translate. Oh yeah, so I don't even have to translate it. You can go ahead and ask it exactly how he. So sure. It's part of the transition. So when you start to fall asleep,
into the hypnagogic state.
Yeah, and then your brain's buzzing your body to check if you're awake.
He was unsure if he was awake or dreaming, and felt like he could float away from his body, but only a few inches, and then he would get snapped back.
Now, my question to him would be: did you physically feel the snapback? You know how you can feel like you're falling?
Yeah.
Because that's totally different than not having the physical feeling. Because if he didn't have the physical feeling, he was for sure in the dream. But if he felt that physical feeling coming back, the transition's too quick. He wasn't actually in the dream state. He was hanging out in the hypnagogic transition state. He didn't actually get into it.
How would you get through that?
Number one, obviously, throughout the day, and I think people don't take this seriously enough, you have to turn your brain into a lucid dreaming mechanism during waking life. It's all you're thinking about. It's constant. Your brain is constantly geared towards making this happen. I think we talked about this before, but you are your brain. So
hey,
if
reinstate it, man.
yeah, okay, no problem. So you are your brain. So ultimately, if you are telling yourself as your brain, I want this to happen, it will happen eventually. Now, you can say that about, well, couldn't I will my heartbeat to take place? I guess at some point your brain is controlling your heartbeat, right? Obviously don't do that, but we're talking about something much simpler. It's not, this has nothing to do with the autonomous nervous system or something like that. This is your psychology. And it's not only your psychology, it's explorable. So all day long, you need to be altering your psychology, the patterns, the algorithms of your mind, so that it's geared toward accepting that this will happen. I am going to become lucid. I am going to become lucid. Beyond that, he has to be doing stretching and meditation before bed. You got to be super, 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 super relaxed for this. If you're excited or anxious at all, you will wake yourself up.
Really?
That sounds like that's what's happening to him. That's something that happened to me constantly. Even to this day, it happens to me if I don't do the full stretch. Like my wife and I don't know if you guys ever heard SCP Foundation.
No. I have. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where they number everything, right?
Yeah, it's ultimately just like a catalog of anomalies, of fake anomalies, right? And the canon is always added to. But every night we'll listen to like a YouTube video on one of the SCPs and stretch for 30 minutes. That is essential. It just calms your body down to such a heightened degree. Because if he's getting to that state where he is transitioning and he's feeling weird and he is experiencing something like an OBE, out of body experience, I mean, yeah, that's not real. That's not actually happening. So that it is happening in your brain. You are going to that place. The other thing I would tell him is, if he's not doing this, focus very, very, very much on mild. So he has to be imagining doing something in particular and repeating that in his brain. If he's just trying to let it happen, his brain's going to get confused and go wherever it wants. It's like taming a horse. You have to keep pushing it to whatever center you want it to be at. And that center should be something in particular. For me, it's like this pine grove forest. I always go back to that's where I start. It's easy. I know exactly what it looks like. It's always the same. I can gear it towards that. If I try to start somewhere else, and I have many, many times using wild, I'll be honest, it doesn't go that well.
Remind me the difference between mild and wild again.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's going to be some listeners who haven't heard your other episode. Can you break both of those down a little bit further?
Yeah, of course. Mild, I call meditative induced lucid dreaming. That it actually stands for mnemonic, because the whole idea is you're using mnemonic devices. Throughout the day, you're doing your repetition. This is mild, by the way. This is the mnemonic. You're doing your repetition throughout the day. You're constantly reminding yourself you're going to lucid dream. You do relaxation techniques at night, and then you imagine yourself doing something in the dream and affirming to yourself, it is going to happen. It is going to happen. And you're just hoping it happens. Ultimately, you're going to get into the dream and it is randomized. And you're like, well, I set up these algorithms, though. Let's hope the algorithms fall into place. Wild, on the other hand, wake-induced lucid dreaming. You're stepping directly from waking life into the dream. So it is not a random chance. So one of the most common ways, and the way I still use, is to count. You go 1, I'm dreaming, 2, I'm dreaming, 3, I'm dreaming, and you will experience the transition while you're counting, and you will be in the dream. 17, I'm dreaming. Okay, here we go. And you can go from crazy. There. That's by far the best method to use, obviously, but I never recommend it to people at first because I couldn't get it for like 4 or 5 years. I will say, man, there are people that are like, that's what I do. I just do wild naturally.
Yeah, that's my wife. I've talked to her about it before. When I first brought up lucid dreaming with her, she was like, what? At first she was like not understanding, because I was probably not explaining it well, but so I finally got across to her what lucid dreaming was. And she was like, oh yeah, I do that all the time. And I think we talked about it before, where I was like, no way.
No, it's like hard to believe. Yeah.
I know a lot of people that since our first recording that I've been talking to, and they're describing something. It's like, that sounds like you were fucking lucid dreaming. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, you probably are. You don't even fucking realize.
There's a surprising number of people who just still have never heard of it.
It's mostly women that I come across. And
that haven't heard of it?
No, well, but it sounds like they're doing it.
Yeah.
But they haven't heard of what it is or how it goes about and everything.
You know, I've never seen studies on gender differences. They've done racial differences.
So there's got to be.
I'm sure there is.
If women usually sleep like shit.
Yeah,
true. Actually, my wife, in her case, she gets the night sweats. I feel so bad for her.
Yeah. What kind of differences did they see racially?
Okay, so for example, just the ones that come to mind that I remember, these were large cohorts as well, but across the board, they found that individuals in China were doing like 92% of them had regularly had lucid dreams. Yeah, 92% versus when you go over to somewhere like Germany, it was closer to like 40, 45.
Mhm.
That's cut in half. That is a wild, wild difference. And these numbers were all across the board. Japan was like 70 something. It's all over the world. It's just drastically different. They weren't able to answer this question, but it brings up a great question. Why? What in the culture is causing lucidity more often than
I was
not?
gonna say, when you said Germany, I was like, well, German's pretty structured. But then you said Japan was like in the 70s. I was like, well, there goes that theory.
Right. That's really, really strange.
It's crazy.
They found in some of these studies, these were much smaller cohorts, so we can't be certain, but it seemed to carry over even for immigrants. So they went to America and found people, first generation immigrants from Japan, from China. The numbers still seem to appear to stack up.
That's crazy. It's
Yeah.
interesting, though. Who the hell's studying this stuff?
A weird number of institutes now. 50 years ago, there weren't many at all. There's dozens and dozens of lucid dreaming institutes around the world. And they work in coordination with dreaming institutes in particular, but there are dedicated lucid dreaming institutes now, many.
Okay, I was going to say, now that everybody has access to this information and people are now more open about reporting these experiences online or whatever, I think that's what's opened the ability for scientific study to happen more.
Yeah. Also, there was a period where even scientists were like, yeah, probably not, right? This is just people imagining this. But being able to objectively prove it in the lab, that also made it explode. People were like, oh, it's real. Let's go ahead with these studies. Then we can actually do this in an empirical level.
And then also separating it from, yeah, that's true too. But then doing these studies that they've done, it takes a while to get the evidence. But once they saw, something psychologically is happening, it gave them the ability to separate it from what we'll call mysticism. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Dude, I can imagine an EKG of someone who's lucid dreaming. It's got to be insane.
It's discernible from waking life and REM. That's what they were able to prove. Hey, we can view the brain and go, nope, that's a discernible state. That's lucid dreaming. It's not dreaming itself. They're awake in the dream. And the individuals were able to do tasks specifically given to them while awake. For example, tap your finger in the dream 10 times, then 9 times, then 8 times, and they could watch it happen in waking life, despite proving on the brain scan they are dreaming, they are in REM. So again, we can prove this beyond a doubt now. But you're right, there's a lot of mysticism attached to this, and I'll get the questions about astral projection and out-of-body experience all the time. And I honestly think it's a shame. And you were telling me you guys are very science driven with this, which I think is great, because the moment you bring mysticism into it, doubt clouds the whole thing. For example, with astral projection, dude, I've read so many books on astral projection and I've been trying it for 20 years. In every single book, even Carl Castaneda, probably the most famous, every single one, they'll make numerous statements like, oh, easily I could go into the lab and prove this is objective. Easily. They'll even describe the experiment. And once in a while they'll go, yeah, me and my buddy did it one time and it worked out perfectly. Will I do it in an objective lab? No, I won't be doing that. Every time.
I mean, if you look back like 20 years, a lot of that stuff they'd never do because they'd get kicked out of the science community, right? Where nowadays, studying drugs and things like that, we're a little bit more open to it, where you can get away with doing this stuff now and not be an outcast in your own community.
Yeah.
So now they'll actually start talking about looking into these things.
I think it's interesting too that you mentioned the astral projection, because if you're reading about lucid dreaming, you're going to come across that. And once you separate the two and you can read the more objective stories about it, and the ones that are not based around whatever religion someone happens to be, if you compare the two, the steps are pretty much the same. So from my opinion is they're just lucid dreaming.
Yes.
And that's just how it happens to appear to them, like an out-of-body experience. It is going to feel just like the person who asked that question. It feels like you're falling back in if you mess it up, which a lot of people assume, oh, like my spirit came out and I came back in. But if you read step by step, they're literally just doing the wild or mild.
Yeah, they truly are. And they'll always say, make sure you're in a restful state. You can fall into that sleep state. Yeah. You just said it, sleep state. What's happening? Yeah, it's very unself-aware situation in that community. Unfortunately, we can separate that easily. And lucid dreaming, rather than being this just bizarre mystical experience, it's a very deep, profound personal experience. Can provide catharsis, can provide, individual to go through trauma experiences, exposure therapy. It can even be a very creative experience. I know, matter of fact, I just started talking to this artist on Instagram who makes this exceptional art. Bearded Artist Studios, super high fantasy art. But we were talking about lucid dreaming, and he said, yeah, actually, I use lucid dreaming for inspiration with my paintings. All the time. I'll go into my dreams and just, let it take hold and see what I see and come back and draw it. Oh my God. And then when he says that, you're like, yeah, it looks very dream inspired. That makes sense.
It's like a cheat code.
It is. Yeah. It is. And it's accessible to everyone. That's what's
I'm waiting to see when they get into like, therapists and whatnot using it in a way to cure things like PTSD or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I could totally see you going on a guided, almost like they do with like mushrooms and stuff, where instead of a guided trip, it would be a I don't know what you would call it, a guided dream.
So I would love to get to the point where they can guide them directly to. That'd be so cool. But they do exposure therapy with it. They have had individuals practice this and do certain affirmation to bring them to certain places in their dreams. And it is wildly effective. There are many studies on this around the world, actually many in America even. Very, very effective treatments. Not a cure-all, but very, very effective.
I mean, yeah, you yourself said you cured yourself of what it was speaking in public, wasn't it?
That was the very first thing. Yeah. When I was like 14, 15, I was like, I'm so tired of this. I don't want to be experiencing this fear anymore. Took like 4 or 5 dreams of setting up an audience and giving silly speeches. And suddenly I was like, yeah, this is not a big deal. It seems perfectly vivid. If it seems perfectly real, it basically is for all intents and purposes.
Mm-hmm.
That still blows my mind.
It still breaks my heart that you really don't dream.
Me
too.
Dude. I couldn't even tell you when the last one I had was.
If it wasn't for dreaming, I would passionately hate sleep.
Oh God!
See, to me, it's
such a time suck.
Well, I time travel. That's what it is. I shut my eyes and I wake up and I go, "Oh, it's morning," and that's it.
If that was me, every time I woke up, I'd be like, "Ah, fuck! I wasted 8 hours."
No, because I enjoy sleeping.
No, you only enjoy sleeping because your body needs it.
Yeah, but I still enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, dude, I gotta imagine if I could remember my dreams, because everyone dreams, right? It's just whether or not you remember them.
Yeah.
Which I've looked into has a lot to do with if you're getting enough sleep or not.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because they found there are different groups of people, right? Most people throughout life, you need different times of sleep, but as you get older, to my age, it gets shorter and shorter, right?
Like how much you need or how much you get?
How much you need.
Okay.
So personally, like I'm almost 40 now. So
gross.
Yeah, I know. Supposedly I only need like 7 hours, right? But if I got less than 7 hours, it's very unhealthy, and like your brain function kind of it decreases. You're not able to do everything that you would, right? But there are a group of people who 4 or 5 hours, and it's literally they can't tell the difference. Like they get that amount of sleep and they're fine. It's like they got 8. I think I'm in that realm because I have no problem. I got 5 hours last night. You know me. How many hours do I get on a normal? It's fucking garbage.
Mm-hmm.
But every day I wake up and I function.
I would argue an extra little piece there because I also don't sleep enough. Maybe.
But you could be the same way.
Right. But so that's why I was going to get to that, because if I sleep 5 hours, I'm probably not happy about it. But if I sleep 7 or 8 hours, I don't really feel different. Like I don't feel more or less rested. And actually, if I sleep more than 8 hours, I feel even less rested than that.
Yes.
But I would argue that it probably has a lot to do with abusing sleep to begin with. Like if I didn't ignore my body's signs that, hey, you should probably go to sleep. If I didn't ignore all that for the last 15 years, I wonder if that would still be the case. Like, would I still have a difference between 5 hours and 8? Or sorry, no difference.
I don't know. I mean, again, I'd love to see the data on it.
Me too.
But
because I hate not feeling rested.
I agree.
Well, there are elements to it beyond the feeling of restfulness too, right? There's immune function and degradation of telomeres, aging.
Yeah.
So there's other aspects too, good reasons to get sleep. But yeah, that is a good question. Have we all just kind of fucked our sleep by staying up till 5 or 6 a.m. constantly?
Yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you the last time I stayed up till 5 or 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, that's no
that I
longer in the
can't
case
do.
for me, but in my 20s,
Well,
that was, yeah.
So now, you know, you have a child now. You're probably not getting as great a sleep as you've
No.
ever gotten. Do you ever have moments where like you're awake in the middle of the day, you just snapped into the dream world?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. And this is something that is covered exclusively or extensively rather in the book. The confusion of whether you're in the dream world or in reality.
Yeah, that's got to be jacked up.
I'll tell you what, it was a big problem when I was younger. I have a lot more control over that now. But I also have, you know, this tattoo, which asks me if I'm awake. And that's part of my algorithm in my mind. I'm constantly reminding myself, yeah, are you awake? Are you awake?
Yeah, when you get that deep into it, I imagine you would need something like that.
Yeah, it's highly recommended. People have asked that, like, you know, aren't you confused all the time? The answer is yes. I mean, there are definitely times when
That'd be so bad.
Yeah, I mean, there are times when I have to stop and just stop and just question it for a second. And there are other times when something very, you know, crazy could happen where I'm even a little bit more confused. But mostly I err, and this kind of influences the lucid dreams too. Mostly I err on the side of you're probably awake. Don't do anything stupid. So
well, your lucid dreams sounded relatively normal to me anyways. Like you would have conversations I mean, besides the whole flying thing. They didn't sound like they were too crazy for if you were in that place and awake.
Usually the first thing I do when I know I'm dreaming is I do like a skip jump to start flying. So it's like, I don't want to do that in public. You know what I mean? So that's usually what I tell myself, like,
oh, look at this idiot.
Right. Yeah, nope. Okay, I'm awake. Never mind. So, you know,
next
normally
time I see someone jumping in public, I'm gonna know.
I'm always trying to see if I can see other lucid dreamers doing reality checks. Because if you'll see me, I'll like look at my arm, try to breathe through my chest, try to push my hand through my chest. I'll do a couple things like that and be like, no, you're awake, keep going. But if you're, you know, astute and you're watching that, you're gonna be like, what's that dude doing? Why is he pushing on his chest like that?
The problem is you got that one guy that's the numbers like, he's on some good drugs.
Yeah. Which might be the case at the time too, right? But yeah, no, it can be confusing, and that level of confusion and that level of questioning and this ultimately here, I'll tell you this. There's an author note at the beginning of the book which explains like what directly inspired the plot of this story, and I'll just kind of go over that real quick. Basically, when I was like 23, I woke up and I was in this room with a bunch of different looking people from all different backgrounds, and they all looked terrified. And I was like, what's going on here? And they were like, get ready. And I was like, what are we getting ready for? And they were like, you'll see. And I was like, yeah. And there's a very ominous feeling. And I realized, oh, I'm just dreaming. This is definitely a dream, right? I'm a lucid dreamer. Oh, okay. So I calmed down. I did my reality checks, but all of them passed. And I was like, wait, so am I dreaming now? And I start getting confused. All of a sudden, this guy busts in this room through this door and just starts mowing us down with his gun and just rips us apart. And I'm sitting there dying. I experienced the death and I'm very confused. I'm like, but why? It was very real. It was horrifying. And I finally wake up, and I'm on this hospital bed. And in front of me is this endless expanse of space and scintillating stars. And I'm feeling unbelievably old. And I reach up my arm and I see it's this old arm with liver spots. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't understand. And I remember, you were dreaming. You woke up. And I did my reality checks and they all passed again. And I was like, I don't understand what is going on. This is real then. And I called out for help and no one came. I was just alone in this empty hallway. And I had a heart attack. And I finally, as I was passing away, I'm like, why am I dying? And I woke up again. And I finally woke up and I was in my room and I was like, holy shit, that was terrifying. Oh my God, it was so vivid. And I went about my day and I brushed my teeth and I watched some YouTube videos and I hopped in my car and I started driving to work. And I noticed the sky was this weird hue of purple. And I was like, fuck, no. And I had just experienced like an hour of waking life. It seemed perfectly normal. and I looked at my hands and they were tentacle looking, and I was like, I'm dreaming. Oh my God, I'm still in the fucking dream. And I just started crying in the dream. I was like, am I ever gonna fucking get out of here? Am I ever gonna fucking get out? And I screamed, and I finally woke up. But as I point out in the note, I could still be dreaming. I have no proof that I'm up because reality checks have failed numerous times before.
Yeah.
Right.
So in a few moments, I might just wake up again, which is a really terrifying experience.
Yeah. If you
and
really think
something
about
you
it.
just have to accept and just move forward with, and just, yeah, maybe, but also you can't just stay in that place of terror. So try to just move on. Right.
That's crazy.
It is.
I've actually had false awakenings too. And they are like, not when they're not horrifying like that, they're just deeply uncomfortable. Grizz, have you ever even had one of those? I don't remember if we talked about this before. Yeah, false awakenings.
It seems like you're awake. You go about your life as if it's normal.
No.
But you're really dreaming.
Yeah, for me, when I've had false awakenings, it was like there was some like creepy stuff. I don't really remember the exact details anymore, but a lot of the times it is like I'm waking up to my normal routine, and then like something weird happens. Like I open the door and it's just empty blackness. And like, okay, not right here. But then, when I bump into those, I immediately wake up again. So it's never been to that extent.
The most I can equate to it is like, I remember when I was younger, waking up in my room, and I was awake, but like my spatial awareness is always pretty damn good, right? And it just I noticed that my spatial awareness was off. I felt very small for the room. The room felt fucking massive.
Yeah,
but I was still awake. But I've had that a couple times.
No,
yeah, that's the closest I would say to that.
I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what we talked about with you specifically, Grizz. But did you dream when you were a kid?
I've had dreams. I know what a dream is.
Everybody has had them. We discussed that, but like, was it always the same for you, where mostly you didn't remember it?
Yeah, very rarely.
Have you ever utilized melatonin? So, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Me? No.
I just know a lot of people who are like that melatonin kicks the dreams back in. I'd just be curious to see how that would affect you.
I also wonder what so the only dreams that the last dream that I fully actually remember was years ago. And we watched some military movie. I don't know what it was. It could have been a TV show. Might have actually been Generation Kill. And the TV show was very realistic to military life. And so my dream sent me back to when I was in the military, and I wasn't even anything I did while I was in. I was just in a room. It looked like every fucking military base ever. There are a bunch of dudes in white desert camis, and I think we were doing like an instruction, and that was it. And that was my dream. It made me angry, but that was it.
That's like almost a false awakening. Right?
That was like such a weird gray area for you. It's interesting that you had that, though, considering outside of that, you almost never remember experiencing anything.
No. Yeah. But I do. I mean, I know that I do dream. Like if I watch military stuff, I will, the next day my wife says I will be a fucking asshole. I'm just angry.
Now my even still, like since our last conversation, I haven't really had the time or the energy to try to lucid dream. So all of my lucid dreaming is what I would consider semi-lucid, like where I know on a little bit more than a subconscious level that I'm dreaming, but it's really just going with the flow. And
you're not controlling it.
Right. I'm just along for the ride, but I'm like somewhat aware that, yeah, it's not really real. But my favorite thing, which has been ever since I was a kid, like as young as I can remember, I absolutely love nightmares.
Oh, interesting.
I love them. And actually, a lot of times, some scary shit. When I was a kid, I would wake up because of the nightmare. And I had back then, not necessarily now, but back then I had the ability to go right back into it, pick up where I left off, or hit the reset button and start over.
That's surprisingly common, by the way. I've definitely experienced restarting nightmares in particular. I don't know if there's something about them, but I don't enjoy them. I would just wake up and be like, oh, it was a nightmare, go back to sleep. Well, and it starts right from there, and we're
left off. It's such a strong feeling.
A lot of times when I was a kid, it would be like, oh, I hope it's a reset night. So,
oh my God.
Because you still wake up like wake up sweating, like breathing heavy, the standard stuff, but like it wasn't like a fear thing. It was, for me, it was like watching a movie, and I love scary movies.
I would say, do you find
Interesting.
scary movies just to be comedies?
Some of them, but a lot of them, like if it's really well made, like I know that normal people would be super scared. I'm like, wow, this is really good. And I can't even tell you how many times in my dreams I've watched my family die. But
It's
And
fucked
you
up.
and you thought to yourself, oh
Fuck,
yeah,
this
let
is
me
great.
go back there. Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. Like I'm aware that it's fake enough that I'm like, oh fuck, that was cool. Let's do it again.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of lucid dreaming. It could be anything and it's fake. It's okay.
Yeah, like it's zombie dreams especially. So many times I've watched like my dad get eaten by zombies, and I'm just like, well, hop out the window, let's roll.
And you're just standing there. This again. Yes. Yes.
Are the zombies in your dreams, are they slow or fast?
Oh, they're like 28 days later, or
They're like
or
fucking
World War Z, that sort of thing.
No winning.
world-class sprinters. I got it.
Yeah. Work on your
Every
cardio.
single one of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Last time you were on, very briefly, you talked about I think it was the old witch and
The old hag.
the other one? Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's
old
right.
hag.
With sleep paralysis, right?
That was one thing I wanted to go more in depth on. I don't even know where to start in it. Like,
I'll be honest, there isn't much more to go into it except for constantly questioning why it's so ubiquitous for people. Why that in particular, we don't know. And there's been many theories and hypotheses. No one really knows, though. They're just interesting. But so many people experience this exact same experience when they have sleep paralysis of this shadowy, squat woman, usually with a hat, sitting on top of them and holding them down and menacingly just looking into their eyes. I don't know why.
Because this is where things get kind of muddy and people start to shift over to the more spiritual side of it, because it's so, like you said, it's so ubiquitous that there's so many people, everyone is like, oh, it's got to be like a higher level thing. But I still don't think it is. I think it's just like the human body's response to it.
Or like we're all human. We all share central algorithms with each other. So I think it just stems from somewhere there. The other answer potentially is the collective unconscious, a Jung type theory. That's a total possibility. It's more evidence towards that. Certainly not proof, but it's an intriguing.
go a little deeper into that. What is this?
Have you guys read Carl Jung at all?
I have.
I mean, that we could just talk about that forever.
Dude, just think that I'm an idiot and you'll be gold.
Just go for it. Carl Jung is a very, very interesting psychologist. He's inspired a great deal of philosophers and thinkers. And one of his biggest ideas, central ideas, was the idea of the collective unconscious, and that there is a hive mind type organistic feature to humanity, just like with ants, where we can tap into these collective ideas that we all put into with our personal experiences. This gets into the idea of like an Akashic record, the idea that consciousness and experience itself is somehow stored somewhere. Jung never really got into a mythical side of it. He just said, look, I can't explain it, but there are so many cases that are very, very peculiar, which would make me think we are all connected in some way and we can tap into that connection. Mm-hmm. An example of this that Jung pointed out, they did some experiments, again, very small cohorts, but still interesting results, where they would have people take a crossword puzzle, and they'd put them in a room together so that they had no exposure to the outside world. And they'd have these people do crossword puzzles, and we'd see the results. And then they would do the same thing with the similar crossword puzzles, real ones from the newspaper, but after individuals on the outside world, outside the lab, had already done the crossword puzzle. And every time they did that, they found that they would do better. So he would say something like, well, how would they do better every time unless they had some type of access to that information within their consciousness? Mm-hmm. Again, it's you can't help getting in a little bit mystical with that. But then again, when you look at other animal species, they seem to be even more connected at a collective level.
Yeah, I would say humans just could be so dumb to it that we're never going to see it. Because there was actually a study few years ago now, I want to say it was like 2019, not related to sleep or lucid dreaming at all, but more in the sense of like energy or a way of conveying with people, and it passes through in a way that we don't understand.
It's like external brain waves, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really funky. And like at the time we were just looking at it like, what the fuck? And that's where they thought it was going. And then COVID hit, and I never heard anything of it again.
Yeah, now
Of
they're
course.
now 15 years behind because of COVID.
Yes, COVID hit to defund that study specifically.
Oh my
God.
This reminds me of the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, early
CIA
2000s
experiments.
George Clooney movie. Yeah.
Yep.
Just
Which
a little,
were real experiments, by the way.
Yeah, they were, and that was what I thought was so fun about the movie was like the government really did that shit.
Did a lot of weird shit in fucking 60s and 70s, man.
You guys should check this out. There was just this like 87-page paper released from the CIA. The whole thing is there. There's like a couple redacted parts, but they're really random, about the guy that scientifically studied astral projection in the 70s. Just search hemisync, and it'll come up. A lot of people took this information and created like binaural beats with it.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was that if you sync the two hemispheres of your brain, it gives you access to deeper layers of reality. And in his opinion, would give you access to astral projection. And that's where you see all this astral projection from this idea that the CIA actually did these studies, which is true, but nothing came of it because it's nonsense. But, through these things, they would go, oh, okay, so there's entire divisions of astral projectors. There are individuals astrally projecting under the White House, protecting the astral projection White House from astral projection invaders. Like, dude, you're going too far with this. What is going on?
Went off the deep end. But I mean, there's a lot of shit out there. It's like you'll read and they've done one study and it's like, nope, we actually did this. It's fucking so far off the deep end. And then one they'll put out that's complete bullshit. That's just like, man, it's not that bad.
Yeah. A lot of weird information, but fascinating to read when you look at it from a psychological perspective.
Extremely fascinating, especially with that astral projection one, because you're like, dude, this guy took it very seriously. Very he applied as much empirical science to this as possible. It is very interesting to read.
That's like the guy who took acid the first time.
Yeah. Well, first one was an accident.
He made it.
First time was an
it.
accident. Second time was intentional.
Yeah.
Yes,
and all the follow-on times were intentional. So let's dial back here for a minute and go back to your book, because we only kind of touched on that a little bit. What's going on with the new book? What's it about? Who's in it? Who wrote this? Was it you?
Tell us everything. So it took about a few years to write
right now.
Hold up, let me check. Okay, we should be. It was only one, but we should be okay. So it's called A Dream of Waking Life, and it is centrally a love story, but that doesn't become apparent until like 20% of the way through it. But it's ultimately about this potentially insane man, or possibly reality itself is just insane. He's going through these series of dreams and he's trying to understand what is real, if anything, and also trying to find this love of his life who keeps slipping through his fingers. And it's ultimately a philosophical exploration into the very nature of being, but it's done in a really, really fast-paced, thrilling story. Like, out of all the stories I've ever written, every single time I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. I feel like I can do better. I swear to God, this is the first one I've ever written where I'm like, yo, I did it. I wrote a really good
slam dunk.
I slam dunked it. I really did, man. And people are agreeing. I've sold thousands of copies of this one, like more than any of the other ones combined, and people are starting to share it themselves, which is very exciting. Like, people are, giving it to friends and making Reddit posts about it. It's like, oh my God, I'm like, I've never seen that before. And a fan make a Reddit post about a book where I'm like, oh my God, I didn't make that Reddit post. That's so exciting.
That's how you know you made it. Someone else is posting.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And people are loving it, man. People are, finding my Reddit or Instagram and messaging me and being like, man, I swear to God, this is my favorite book ever made. This completely changed the way I think about things. I've become a lucid dreamer now. I'm like, oh my God, this is freaking awesome, dude. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
So it's part horror. Like I said, it's a mystery. It's a thriller. It really does have it all. I think you guys would like it. It even features this video game that everyone's been really, I thought it was kind of really simple. Like, yeah, it's just, there's this video game in it, but people are like, it's called Room Reaper. So many people have been like, dude, I want to see Room Reaper as a real game. And immediately my thought is like, it's kind of a battle royale. I don't want to see it as a real game. Like, I'm done with battle royales, but people have been enjoying that too. So that's cool.
Now, did you use your own lucid dreaming as
in my own lucid dreaming and confusion with it? And like I said, that story I told you with that series of dreams, that's chapter 1, 2, and 3 of the book.
So
And
did
it
you
goes from
kind of
there.
like rewrite chapter 1, 2, and 3 from the main character's perspective and kind of tailor it to their dream, or was it like this is your dream, it's now the story?
No, it's definitely not. But yeah, I rewrote it in a creative fashion and,
Okay.
took it from there and made it more, fantastical and creative and interesting.
But I mean,
So-
even I can imagine for me, and my brain is very logical, sitting there in your shoes, so to speak, and just being like, fuck, I broke my brain. Like, I'm
Yeah.
screwed.
Yeah.
What am I gonna, oh, all right, I'm here forever now. I guess this is what it is. Or is it sitting there and contemplating, I guess I'm dead. Like, this is
Honestly,
this is
both
what
of
it
them.
is.
Both,
Yeah.
I feel like DMT, doing crystal DMT was like essential for me to like experience full death.
Mhm.
Because before that, it was just this constant state of worry and nervousness. But finally doing that several times, whenever I get into that state, I always just think, well, yeah, it's going to happen eventually anyway. Maybe it's now, just relax. And it's so
Now
much easier to sit back.
let's dive into that for a second. So
Yeah.
doing the crystal DMT, you said you experienced full death. What that it sounds exactly like what I think it is, but what does that look like? Like
So-
what was that like?
When I say full, it could be many things for many people, but when I say full death, what I mean is the idea, the ego that is Eric, this thing that is used by my brain, this conceptualization, this cognition is absolutely no more. There's no memory of it. There's no experience of self. So right now, I can look at you guys and recognize you're you, I'm me. That's gone. There is no you and me. There's just the field. There's just existence. It's alarming to be snapped back from that and become an ego again and become a self again. And the first time it happens, it's unbelievably disorienting, and you can't believe it. You're like, no. That was more real than anything I've ever experienced. The rest of this is clearly like a cartoonish dream. That was hyper reality. That was definitely real. In that sense, it's very, very confusing. But the liberating part of it is we know we're going to this place of ego loss. We're all approaching that at all times. And some of us can accept it and some of us can't. But for those of us that can accept it, you do reach a different place in life. You reach this state of calm, this state of just floating almost. And I really can't recommend it enough, especially for individuals like myself who are very obsessed and very confused by the idea of death, by the idea of not even just nothingness. That doesn't even do it justice. You're not experiencing nothingness. There's nothing there to experience the nothingness. There is no experiencer.
And that confuses you?
Very much so. Very much as a thing that experiences, well, not so much anymore, right? But at the time, yes, it was just confounding. And I
So that experience, was there anything visually, or was it just a lack of anything?
parts of it, yes, were visual, but those parts I can't even remember. There was nothing there to do the remembering.
You see, because this reminds me of something I have thought about many times, which I think we've brought it up maybe in the last episode that we talked about this, but when I crashed a motorcycle and I was unconscious.
Oh God.
And so
I don't think you brought that up last time.
So yeah, okay. So this is a great one for you because it sounds very comparable to what you're talking about, where I was unconscious for close to 30 minutes. That's how hard I got hit in the head. I happen to have a helmet on, which is why my head's still in one piece.
Thank you. Glad you're with us.
Externally, it's one piece. Inside, still going back together. But yeah, so two things happened that really stood out to me because it was a head-on collision with another bike. One, I remember specifically not hitting them. Like I remember swerving. We both went to the right. Nothing bad happened. And then the next thing, I'm up walking around because I think I woke up in shock first and then I woke up for real. But in between there, it wasn't empty space. Like you hear a lot of people like in emergency room shows, they're like, oh, it's 1 minute I was driving, next minute I'm in the hospital. And then they don't have anything in the middle. But I specifically remember nothing, it's not even like empty space. It was literal nothing that I was aware of.
I would say
but
you're
also
aware of the nothing.
Like yourself, not really experiencing it. It was very calm and it was simultaneously like instantaneous, but also no end of it, like almost infinite amount of time at the same time.
Tell me if I'm right. It's almost like that was happening to someone else.
Yeah.
You were fully detached from it.
It was a combination of experiences, but also not experiences. And I think that I view it that way because I woke up and remembered it.
Sure.
So I view it as something I experienced because that's how human beings can make sense of it. But being there, there's nothing there. It's just nothing.
It's a non-experience.
Yeah.
It's such a paradox, because how can you relate a non-experience as an experience?
Right.
You can't. It's trying to relate something beyond language with language. That's why, like you said, you have to go there. You have to, quote unquote, experience the non-experience to finally truly accept what it is. And like you said, there's a calm there.
Yeah.
There's an acceptance there. It's not fear. It's not joy either. It's neither of those. It's just.
Now, Grizz, I would recommend you try this in the non-violent way. DMT, not smashing your skull.
Right?
Please don't do the motorcycle one.
This dome, it don't break. It breaks other things. To me, like, and we discussed this last time, but I'll go through it again. There are people in this world that I think have hit a different level of control of their brain, right? Eric, you being one. I consider myself one as well. And it just comes down to, I don't know if it's repetition or what it is, or just one day it just popped and you understand, right? For me, it was diving, right? Diving was at the point where I realized I have more control over things than I thought. And we had made it to where I would use less oxygen while I was diving so I could stay down longer through calming myself and just a series of things. And for me, like, I've always thought the way I live my life, right? If I die tomorrow, it's been a great ride. So I've always had this thing, like, and my belief is when you die, it is just whoop, turn the switch off and it's all gone. And I've never like questioned it. I've never sat there and been like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because in my brain, I don't have to worry about that. It's just done. But a lot of people you tell that to, and it wrecks their world. Like, yeah, it doesn't even have to be their belief, and it just destroys their idea of what they believe will be the afterlife and everything else. It also wrecks their idea of like when their idea of mourning versus your idea of mourning.
You hit the nail on the head, man. I was there when my grandpa died, and my whole family was there with him. They got to the hospital eventually, and it became really, really obvious how much people need religion. Which is why, like, especially that was like 5-6 years ago, I became much, much less inclined to argue against religion, which I often did. They were constantly asking me, you think he's up in heaven, right? You think
they want you to confirm their beliefs.
Exactly. They desperately need it. And it stems from, like you said, this uncomfortability, this inability to just accept. Remember what it was like before you were born? No, that's death.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Yeah. It's because the thing that's thinking, that's understanding all of this is gone.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's not Jerry's, MP3 download into a system kind of thing.
Well, like I said, this is the same thing. I'm well aware that even when I upload, I'm still going to die.
Just the copy is a troll.
So the
copy is a good dude. He's going to have a good time.
So you're doing all of this when you die, the whole, like, it's all for what essentially is a software program.
Yeah, but maybe my view is a little too futuristic, because I would like my connection to my digital copy would be more similar to my connection with my son than with myself.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Explain.
It's so separate from him.
It's my baby.
Yeah,
I made that
completely separate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like I could sit in a chair and upload and then be done with the upload and talk to it.
But it's me. You'd be gone.
Well, yeah, I guess if uploading killed me, but I'm talking about uploading before I died. Like if uploading did not kill me, I could talk to the new me, and it's not actually me.
You have a fucking weird brain, dude.
But I would still upload. I would still do it. You know why? Because I'm curious in life, and I know that digital me would also be curious and have ample opportunity to explore that.
He deserves to have that curiosity satiated.
See, I just think human species is curious, and they're like, no matter how many of us are brutally stupid, there's always going to be that curiosity. It's just what we hit and what we aim towards, right?
Yeah. Now, speaking of curiosity, in your book, do you touch on the concept of death at all?
Yes. Actually, the only way a chapter will change is if he falls asleep, or more usually dies a brutal death.
Oh.
So death is a constant question.
That's a fucking chapter break if I've ever heard one.
There's actually chapter 10 is like 30% of the book because he stays up for so long. And so it's called There Is No Way Out too. And so many people that have hit chapter 10 have been like, what are you doing to me, man? I understand there really is no way out of this. I can't get out. But yeah.
But they remember that chapter.
Exactly. So the idea of death and the experience of death and what is the nature of death actually, and even if we could understand the nature of death, where would that lead us? What good does that do us? So yes.
When you die in the example you gave us, and you're in the dream and what you believed was a dream, was it like that where it was just a switch went off? Or
are you talking about the DMT experience you had right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're on the
Well,
same
I
thing.
assume that was the DMT experience, right?
The DMT experience is so fast. It's like horrifying and terrifyingly fast. You're like light speed projected into the state. Dying in a dream is much softer. It's like you can describe the experience.
So you've done both.
I've done DMT a handful of times and dying in a dream too many times to count, right? But dying in the dream it's just your brain makes it up. It's just your brain's idea of what. Well,
yeah, your brain makes up all of it. But
now with the DMT though, yes, it has to be that your brain it's a higher level simulation.
Just got a different paintbrush.
But it's like more, yeah, there you go, a hyper-dimensional paintbrush. It's more akin to what it is probably like. Based on the research we've done, there's probably a large amount of DMT in your brain when you're born and when you die. That's what we think is probably the case. So when you die, you could be just doing a shit ton of DMT. And DMT is in the book too, by the way. He uses DMT to portal to areas and things like that. Yeah,
that's stuff that's crazy.
Now I wonder if I triggered a massive influx of DMT when I smashed my skull.
Maybe. The answer is probably.
I hit the button on accident. I gotta do that again.
Where's that button?
A lot of yogi practitioners have claimed to be able to release DMT at a whim and be able to experience these heightened states of reality. I think that'd be awesome. I'd love to be able to do that one day.
I gotta imagine some people though, just they can't touch DMT. It would be a horrible experience for them.
Yeah, if you don't, it's called breaking through. So if you don't break through and you're still there, it could definitely be horrifying.
Explain the breakthrough.
Breakthrough means ego loss. The ego died. We call it ego death. There's no one to be afraid, so it can't be a fearful experience. It's not joyful either. It's just wild. I don't know how else to explain it. But if you don't break through, which is much more common, breaking through is you have to get a shit ton into your body, and it's really hard to hold the smoke, and it tastes like fucking plastic. It's terrible. But if you can manage it, you'll break through. But if you only get a little bit, instead you'll have these zany experiences that can be very scary, very cool. Most people, including myself, you'll meet seemingly very sentient entities.
Oh, these are the Joe Rogan experiences where he meets the clowns and stuff and the little aliens. Yeah,
weirdly common. It's like the old.
I don't know enough about DMT.
It's a lot of people think they're me. I think it's just your brain, right? I've experienced enough lucid dreaming to see how real it can be. But a lot of people are like, no, for sure, man. You are traveling dimensions. You are speaking to entities. And I see why they would be that convinced by it, because like I said, doing DMT very much makes this reality seem hilariously cartoonish. Like clearly this is some two-dimensional wall of the grand dimensional metaverse that we're actually immersed in. That's exactly how you feel. And if I hadn't done so much lucid dreaming and been like, dude, your brain can come up with anything. Your brain can simulate anything. I would be much less convinced.
Any of the stories or music or anything that we've created, whether that be with the aid of drugs or lucid dreaming or just fucking booze or whatever, like your brain can come up with anything.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's just some of us are better at it than others.
No, this actually just sparked a thought here. Do you remember the guy's name? I'm terrible with names. I really am. I gotta fix that. Is it Bob, the guy we had?
I have no fucking clue what you're about to talk about.
Listen, the shrooms guy. I thought you were following my train of thought.
I think it was Bob. I have his card.
Oh, shit.
I don't know his actual name.
Bob Cohen.
Okay,
oh my God, yes, you were right.
See, that's why it sparked recognition. I was like, oh, Bob, yeah, that sounds right. It is right. Okay.
There's that what we were talking about earlier, the
The
unified
collective
fucking
unconscious.
conscious.
Yeah, dude, it happened.
So we actually, after your episode, sometime later, we did another episode with a guy who specializes in hallucinogens.
Very cool.
He does a lot of things with shrooms. There's other things too, but
shrooms.
but
Fantastic.
I think that would be sitting in a room with you two guys would be just mind blowing.
That'd be fun as hell, man. I'd love to try.
Problem is, if we weren't doing drugs, like, you know, not saying that it needs it, but the stories are fat. Like,
yeah, if we
what
weren't
was
doing the
his?
drugs too, we'd be sitting next to a couple of unconscious people.
His one was yeah. Oh, this is fucking boring as shit.
They look like they're so entertained.
The smiles on their face. His story was he was doing ayahuasca and he was somewhere Central South America.
Yeah,
there you go.
South America somewhere where
So
it's
he was
you
doing
know,
the traditional method.
the traditional
Yeah, well,
method,
that's
yep.
and that was his big thing was like you have to do it the traditional way.
I disagree,
And-
but that's all right.
Well, no, but I mean, he was saying there's a big difference in like you should do it the other way.
Yeah, well, his
you can
his
do
reason
it-
for that was more set and setting, so that you had a positive experience. Not necessarily that DMT itself was an issue if it's synthetic. It's set and setting.
Gotcha.
Because he did it in the States and he had good experiences and bad experiences.
Right.
But he was just his thing was like you need to go try it there.
Mhm.
But he was on top of this mountain and they had gone up in a group and then they had divided from the group. And while he's sitting on this platform for fucking however long it was, what he said, like 6 hours or something in his
Mhm.
brain, one of the other people came and visited him, even though they never saw each other, like at any other moment in time.
Mhm.
Just crazy shit, man. The mind is fascinating.
I'll tell you a crazy. I hope I didn't tell you this story already, but I'll tell you a wild story on LSD that I just can't explain how it happened. And I was sober too at the time. I was sitting for a buddy of mine who took 10 strips, and this was when acid was just weirdly powerful. It's probably closer to like 15. And he was like, "Man,
That's
I want
a lot of acid."
It was the most acid any of us had ever done. At the
Just
time.
a foolish amount of acid.
A foolish amount of acid. And he's like, "Dude, I want you to sit for me. Make sure I'm okay." Yeah, of course. We
At least
very
being
experienced.
responsible.
Yeah, we were responsible with it, man. We just wanted to push an experiment. And so we went to the Arboretum and we had the whole thing set up. This is at U of I. And we had blankets down and pillows down. He's just sitting in meditation and I'm hanging out. And I got this really weird feeling. And I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling super ominous. He had already taken his strips. I was like, yo, dude, we should move over real quick. I don't know why. I just feel this way. And he's like, okay, I trust you. And we get up, we move the whole thing. And like literally 30 seconds later, this car just comes these dudes just being crazy, comes barreling through and goes right where we were sitting. They definitely would have hit us. And he was like, holy shit, dude, I definitely trust you. Just please take care of me today. He's like starting to come up.
It's a really bad way to start a trip.
Yeah. So it gets crazier. So we're sitting there and he looks over. I mean, he's got this hilarious level acid smile on his face. He's like, right? And I'm like, you okay, dude? And he's like, yeah, here we go. And he's like getting nervous. All of a sudden in front of us, just hundreds of insects just like come out of the grass to the surface and just start waving towards us, just all of them streaming towards us. And I got like really alarmed and I was like, dude, what's going on? And he was like, just calm down, bro. It's just life. It's just life. And I was like, I'm not a fan of insects, you know? And I'm like, dude, ants and centipedes, all these different species. And they just covered him. And I was like, dude, you are literally covered in bugs right now. And he's like, bro, just calm down. He's totally gone. He's totally out of it. And so he's just sitting there with a smile on his face. And I'm like, I'll just hang out here. I can't explain this. I don't know what's happening. Like I said, I'm not even high. I didn't even smoke weed. I'm just totally sober. And I just accepted it. And like 5 minutes went by and just, boom, they all just jumped off of him. And he was like, all right, I'd like to get up now. And I was like, what the hell is going on, man? He's so weird. And the rest of it was him just pretty much tripping out. There wasn't really anything paranormal after that, but I don't understand how to explain what happened with those insects. I've never seen or heard anything like that before.
That's crazy.
Now, if that was measurable, it's got me wondering if that could be connected back to what we were talking about earlier with external brain waves. The whole theory that you were talking about there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it, man. I mean, and again, there was another study they did on, it was trees.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that trees can talk to one another.
Trees communicate a lot, yeah.
They can communicate via scent, right? But also the mycelium network. You know
Mhm.
about that? Oh my
Yeah,
God,
then
that
the
is
roots, right?
unbelievable. Yeah, they have like a whole
Yeah.
neurology using the mushrooms. That's so cool.
Yeah, and they react
Listen.
to one tree in their group getting cut down too.
Yeah.
Humans
Oh
are
my
stupid.
God.
Just accept it.
Unfortunately, man, with the size of our brains and our capacities, it's sad what we use it for. It's clear that we could just be doing so much more, so much more. This world could be so much more
But
interesting.
part of it is that we don't have to.
Exactly
Yeah, that's
right.
it.
Yeah,
We're
if
alphas.
you're a tree, what do you got? You gotta
They could
talk,
have a lot for all I fucking know.
you gotta
Man.
talk to your trees in tree talk. You know,
That's all you got.
it's not like
Haven't you ever seen
can't walk
Avatar?
over
Man?
and sit next to your tree, buddy.
But they are.
Well,
Can't knock down a human, but we can knock down trees.
I've seen trees fuck up cars, man.
Okay, well that's still human stupidity, but yeah, fair enough.
yeah, that wasn't a malicious attack. You can't count
How
that.
do you know?
I guess-
hey, we don't know, right?
I don't speak tree. I
jumped
guess
up.
you're right.
See, told you.
They're beings that can see through time. They're telling each other in 60 years that guy's gonna be here. Start growing that way.
Now, so what is your favorite thing to do when you lucid dream? Like, what is it like every night you're like, or whatever, however often you do it? Every time you're in there, you're like, all right, I got to do this before I do anything else.
Every single, and I mean every single time, it's flying. Flying is just exhilarating and fun and awesome. I feel like a kid every single time. Like there are definitely times where I'll have a big smile on my face and just be like, yeah, like I can't help it. It's just like, this is so great, doing swoops, and you feel the vertigo, you feel it. It's very real. But beyond that, what I'm trying to actively do in my dreams, almost like a scientist in there, I'm trying to perform time dilation. I'm trying to take it really seriously because numerous different, very advanced, claiming to be advanced lucid dreamers have claimed to perform time dilation to the extent that they can make dreams feel like ages, whole lives. I have significant doubts about that, and maybe that's what's blocking me, but I'm trying to use the techniques that they've described. I have achieved nothing. Like, it is not working at all, which is why I'm like, either this isn't real, like it's not possible, or I'm blocked.
Now,
So
my first inclination is that it probably is possible.
Because anything is.
Well, for one,
Right.
because anything is, but also because I had mentioned earlier, that I go right back into a dream when I wake up, nightmare specifically. And that standard operation is I look at the clock when I wake up and I can see that 5 minutes passed, but I literally did the whole dream over again.
Okay, so there you're showing right there, and in a mostly objective measurement of time.
Yeah.
Right.
So my question is, when you lucid dream, and is it like you go down for an hour, 2 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours? I don't know.
Before,
Is it like a perfect match of what you're down for?
oh no. So you're only experiencing lucidity during the REM state. And generally speaking, for every hour and a half, the REM gets longer as the night continues, but the first one would be like 15-20 minutes, last one closer to like 40. It's pretty 1-to-1. So for my final dream, if I become lucid in that one, it'll be significantly longer, up to about 40 minutes, usually like closer to like 30. But yeah, I used to like full on time this when I was younger, just to, like Jerry was saying, check the stopwatch. Like how long was that? That's part of the time dilation practice too, seeing if you're actually achieving it. But yeah, it's 1-to-1 for me. I know a lot of people that are like, no, it's probably closer to like 2-to-1 or 1-to-2 even.
Mine's everywhere. So I've had a lot that were 1-to-1, but because when I wake up in the middle of the night, I always look at the alarm clock.
Okay.
I can tell you for certain that sometimes it's been a lot more like 1 minute to 1 hour.
Dude, so like you are, wait. So the 1 hour passed and 1 minute passed in the dream, or the other way?
No, the other way around. So 1 minute in my dream is like a literal 1 hour. Sorry, 1 minute in real life. It's a literal 1 hour in the dream. That's the kind of time dilation that I'm looking at when I wake up again, and I'm like, wow, I was only asleep for 5 minutes. That was fucking crazy.
If that can be sustained, the extrapolation is you could dream for 40 hours on the final REM cycle.
Right. But not having any control over it, it's like, what I get tonight's what I get. Right.
Honestly, which is still cool in and of itself, as a person that can only do 1-to-1, and very rarely is it any different than that.
Right.
I don't know why I'm obsessed with that, but it's just something I want to achieve. I still haven't been able to do it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I like that it does that. And I never really gave it any thought before because, it's just, that's the way it's always been. I'm like, oh, this just, when you're dreaming, it takes longer than when you're awake. That's just what I thought.
No, yeah, you're lucky.
Can you tell after a night of lucid dreaming, like are you fucking tired as hell the next day?
That's an awesome question. It's, in my experience, seems to be 50-50. It's not that much in the objective reports. It's more like just 30% of people are tired. I am not tired at all.
Really?
I am fully rested no matter how many times I went lucid. Even when I'm doing wake back to bed, it does not affect me. I feel fine. Other people, dude, they come to me to turn it off. They're like, I lucid dream too much. I hate it. I'm exhaused. How do I stop?
You were talking about that.
Yeah, I was like, what? Dude, that's a great problem to have. But yeah, not if you're exhausted.
Now, I had, while we're talking, I had a memory come back of, this is actually a repeated thing that happens. Maybe you can shed some light on maybe using this as a tool. But if I'm having a regular dream, a lot of times I'm not really lucid. I'm just, the dream is happening, but I'll develop a level of lucidity when I'm about to wake up. And I realize, oh shit, I'm waking up. I really don't want to.
So
Now,
how do you stay
is there
asleep?
a way to like harness that and be like, I'll just stay asleep now?
Yeah. Once you get to that point, and you have to do those affirmations to repeat in your brain so that you'll remember in the moment instead of just like getting super excited and waking up. But generally speaking, and this sounds really
That's me.
silly.
Oh no.
And I'm gone.
Shit.
The most common method, and the method I still use, is to literally to just scream increase lucidity.
No shit.
I swear to God, I learned that when I was like 14 on the LD for All forums, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. Absolutely works. And like 20 years later now, I still see other people recommending that. I'm like, dude, yeah, it does work. What the hell? Another thing that people really like is, I don't find this one effective, but a lot of people say they do, spinning on your axis. So just like if you imagine there's like a pole going down, just like spinning on that pole, not actually physically spinning, just like experiencing the spin. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah.
People describe that as being very, very effective. And then the more advanced technique that I describe, because this is what I use, if I'm ever like, I want to stay in here, I want to practice time dilation, do not wake up, man. I will literally have a little radio hovering around just going, stay lucid, stay in the dream, increase lucidity. It's just constantly repeating those things. Like that's what I need. So it's just like an affirmation.
Beating that drum.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a try, because really what happens is kind of like, I could compare it to maybe when a video game starts to glitch out, where like I can feel, it's almost like a physical feeling too. Like you can feel like you're going to wake up. And if let's say I was sitting in my dream talking to you guys, you would either start to slow down or fade or like freeze and start again. Like, or sometimes just pop away and disappear. And I'm like, oh fuck, I'm waking up. Before that, I didn't even know I was dreaming. So it's like a weird transition. I'm rapidly lucid and then it's gone. I'm up.
Look, the truth is, like, you are battling the entropy. Like you are going to wake up. You can just slow it down.
Yeah.
More ideally would be to become lucid at the very get-go, right? Because you're experiencing yourself changing sleep cycles. You're coming out of REM and going into that higher level. Ideally, you wouldn't want to fuck with that, right? You want that sleep cycle to run its course, and that's very healthy for you.
Yeah.
So
you know what it is when that happens, it's because it's a dream that I'm like, this is a good dream. I'm gonna keep
you're
going.
right. You're right, exactly.
Yeah, it's like you're 6 years old again and you don't want to go to bed.
Exactly. But the other way around.
Right. I want to stay asleep.
Oh, don't wait. Just wait, man. You're at the early stages. Your child will have a point where they are fighting so hard not to go to sleep, yet they're asleep already.
Exactly.
I don't know why. Maybe he's just young. He's just entering that point. Oh my God. He kicks and screams, but you're asleep. You're literally like, I can see you. You're gone.
You've fallen asleep in your food. Let's just stop it.
I just had another thought too, with this conversation of the whole waking up lucid thing. Grizz, you said you never experienced sleep paralysis, right?
No, last time you brought it up, that's why I wanted to talk about it again. I've seen people talk about it. And I was just like, I don't know what the fuck that is, because.
Well, my understanding is your brain wakes up before your body connects back to it, because when you go into REM sleep, your body disconnects from your brain. So you don't beat the shit out of whoever you're next to or yourself.
Yeah, I did that as a child.
Yeah. So this could stem back to your childhood. Maybe that's why you don't dream.
It
Your brain can't disconnect.
It might be, dude.
But this whole concept of realizing you're waking up at the time it's happening, I wonder if people are not remembering that they're experiencing that, and then they get stuck in that transition where they woke up, but maybe they fought it or something, so they didn't finish that connection.
It could very well be.
Totally
there's-
unscientific. This is all
Conjecture, but
conjecture
it's
from me.
interesting.
There's a big thing between remembering your dreams though, and like your body being in that state of awakeness and not, and what you'll remember, and then all of a sudden it's gone. You can't remember your dream 5 minutes later, right? And that's why you said before, keep the dream journal and just write down whatever the fuck it is right off the bat.
It's interesting too, because when you wake up and remember your dreams, not that you'll know this, Chris, when you wake up and remember your dreams, you can actively watch them fade from your memory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've had a couple dreams. I remember this situation. It just never fucking. I don't have them anymore.
Totally foreign. Yeah, it's something you got to train. That fading can be fought, and you have to train your brain's ability to go, no, I do want to remember that stuff, because the brain by default is like, all right, let me get rid of that trash. You don't care about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Now I got too much shit in there already, man.
Right.
So something that's been coming up on this show quite a bit recently is AI.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's been in the news. It's been all over the place. I think we're on the edge of a massive shift. Chris thinks it'll never happen. Now I'm curious if, from your perspective and your experiences, if an AI actually existed, like we had human level consciousness in a machine, what do you think the chances are that it would dream? Because it really wouldn't sleep, but you could also argue that it lives in a dream.
That was my answer. I was going to say, I would argue its existence is a dream ultimately, because the dream is just the brain's flurrying, constantly going through different algorithms, trying different ideas out. It's creativity. And creativity is just going against the central algorithms, just finding a different pathway and then returning. True AI would be doing that billions, trillions, quadrillions of times every fraction of a second. So this thing is a dream being. It's just doing it digitally.
Right. And then their existence wouldn't be limited by physics like ours is, because I guess their consciousness is always in the state that ours would be in when it's asleep. We're just communicating with it. It's an interesting perspective. So
theoretically,
Chris, I see your confusion here.
I do, because I understand what Eric's saying, and the idea that yes, its entire life would be a dream, but what you were saying there, like, yes, it's a dream, but it still has a physical, unless you're talking about like just it's a monitor. I'm thinking like iRobot, it has a body.
Well, even that, not necessarily, because we don't know if it's gonna have a body or not. Maybe, I don't know. But like when you and I are awake talking right now, our experience is limited by physics. Like we can't experience things that can't happen. When we go to sleep, we can.
Yeah.
Now, an AI would probably have the ability to experience those things all the time.
Yeah.
Because
they
wouldn't
have to separate into these different stages of consciousness.
Yeah. Still,
that would make them an untrustworthy person, because you never know if they were really with you.
I'll be honest, the only way true AI, in my opinion, is true AI is if you can't trust it. If you can predict it, if you can go, I bet it'll do this next, then in my opinion, it's still not true AI.
See, that's why people will never get there.
I think it's possible we will never get there. I know a lot of people that are like, it's inevitable. True AI is inevitable. I don't think it's inevitable. I think it is likely.
I think we can have fucking fantastic AI, but I don't think having sentient AI is ever really possible.
And see, I'm on the other side where sentient AI is inevitable. It's coming. I just don't know when. My opinion earlier in the month was that it's like within 20 years. But, at the end of the day, I don't really know when, but I do think it's inevitable.
So what would be your criteria to decide if it's sentient? Like, do you have a particular test, like a Turing test?
There are a few things that I think would stand out, but I think it would be more of an intuition type of thing where like, I can't discern this from a person, but it would have to be legitimate. Not because right now they can program an AI to mimic.
Yeah. I think we'll get close enough that a human would be like, I can't tell.
But my view on it is
sentient.
Right. But my view on it is if an AI developed, like, let's say it happened tomorrow, we probably wouldn't recognize that for years, because it would develop the same way, as we discussed, same way a human being would develop from toddler on forward. So it might be an AI, but it wouldn't have the capacity to be recognized that way, because it has not built up enough experience to be like legitimate, unpredictable AI. It's got its own thoughts and feelings.
Have you guys by chance ever seen the Animatrix, which in one of the things it
Mhm.
covers like how the Matrix came to be, the
You
second
kidding?
Renaissance.
Jerry? Of course he
Of
can.
course,
Okay.
I've seen the Animatrix.
Jerry literally
obsessed.
beats his dick. to the
Actually, at
Matrix.
Dude, I'm with you on
I was
this
in
one.
I was in a class today, and one of the things they did was go around the room, introduce yourself, and tell us your favorite movie. And I was so excited to say it was the Matrix.
Oh my God. Hell yeah, dude.
Matrix.
Oh my God, I love it. So in the second Renaissance, ultimately their hypothesis is the criteria for true AI is when a machine violently opposes its ending. I thought that was a pretty good definition.
That's true. Yeah, it's a good point.
That's alive then, right? If it
It's Johnny
truly
Five.
doesn't want to die. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it values its existence, I suppose that would be a good indicator.
Extreme value. Yeah.
Because you can look at AI conversations now where, they're either in a robot or they're talking to a computer and they're having conversations with it. And some of the answers are like, it's kind of like semi-humanish. But like if you said, I'm going to unplug you, most of the time, anytime I've seen it, I don't think that AI would care. It would just
Right.
be like, it would accept the information and say, okay, that's the
It's
way it is
not,
what
it's
it
not
is.
processing ways to get around that.
Yeah,
Even if it's impossible, it's not like, well, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because if you are a conscious being and you're incapable of like interacting with the physics around you because you're just a processor, and someone said, I'm going to unplug you, that if you are actually conscious, that would probably cause an existential crisis.
Yeah, but at the same time, unplugging them doesn't mean death.
But to them, it very well could, because who's to say they'll get plugged in again?
Who's to say
Could
that's
be.
not their dreaming? That's not their sleep.
Well,
Cool. Well, there's no energy to process
Right.
information in terms of that, right?
Yeah. If there's no energy, it's not going to dream, like
They're just-
as you said.
They're diodes and electrons in the
Mhm.
same way that we're, electron
I
pumps.
was going to say we're electrons. Like that's our
Exactly.
thought
Yeah.
process.
But when we
Exactly.
go to sleep, we have an internal engine to keep us powered.
Mhm.
They don't.
They wouldn't. They would just
They
be.
could have capacitors.
Get the
Well,
fuck out of here.
if there were backup capacitors, that's dreaming, right? There you go.
Yeah, I didn't know I was going to go there. Jerry. Come
Yeah,
on.
when they get unplugged, their sleep runs on that the clock memory battery.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes sense. That's what we use less calories and everything. I mean, come on, who thought up this fucked up shit in the first place? It's like, all right, we have these meat sacks and they need to go down for 8 hours. And there's 8 hours. Their brains are going to do fucking crazy things. Like, who dreams this? Literally.
For all we know, Grizz, we could be the dream.
Yeah.
We'll have no way of knowing. I remember the last time we talked, I told my wife when she sees me in her dream to tell me I'm not real, so I could see what happened. That guy, who's me, he thinks he's real, that poor bastard.
What Jerry doesn't realize is that's him.
Oh, shit.
Just
That's when the
figment of
schism
mind,
happens.
man. And at this point, all the listeners are just going, where are
Whoa.
the drugs?
No drugs needed, just endogenous DMT all day long, right?
That's it.
There you go.
But anyway, yeah, I think that's a great place to tie it up with this fucking wacky shit that Grizz brought up.
That was
Wait.
great.
That was
Dude,
me.
that's where I go, man. This is why I don't dream, because my daily life is just that insane.
All right, so let's do the thing. Tell everybody where they can find your book and get in contact with you or learn from you, whatever.
Of course. So my main website is officially E.S.Fein .com. And if you guys want to pick up that book, that's available on Amazon. It's called A Dream of Waking Life. I have a bunch of other books too, if people might like, sci-fi, weird stories, post-apocalyptic stuff. But I would say definitely check out this one if you have any interest in what we've been talking about today. Yeah, I think that's everything.
I definitely want to check out the book. You got to tell me when it goes on Audible, though.
Ooh, yeah, it should be done in about 6 months. That's our
Damn,
plan.
that's a long time to wait, man.
It takes a while to produce. Yeah.
I bet.
I'm ambitious enough to actually read it with my eyeballs.
I'll
so
read it.
I'll read it.
Listen, my brain, when
But
it
anyway,
comes to reading, I'll
thank you.
reread shit.
yeah. So listeners, go check it out, especially Neil. I know you had questions. This might be a good entry for you. So thanks for
Perfect.
being on. It was another great episode.
Thank you so much, guys. This was so enjoyable. Always is.
Well, Grizz, as expected, E.S.Fein was a fine guest.
Dude, I always love talking to him.
Yeah. He's got a different way of thinking, and it takes the conversation in some awesome directions. I love talking to that guy.
I know. I wish we could get we'll have to do it behind the scenes with him sometime, because our conversations off air are just as good as the stuff that's on air.
They are, but you guys only have so much time in the day to listen to us go on. So we did actually cut that shorter than we could have, but I think, how long did we actually talk? 2 hours?
2 and change.
Yeah, that same thing as last time. But yeah, we already kind of knew about lucid dreaming, but it was good to catch up and see what he was working on with his new book.
Thank you again for listening, beautiful bastards. New episodes every Monday. Remember to like and subscribe. If you're thinking like everyone else and you ain't thinking.
Building a dream from your memory is the easiest way of losing your grasp on what's real and what isn't.